What's going on, everybody? In today's video I'm going to be reacting to a conversation between Patrick Bet David and Reza Aslan. So let's see what he has to say about Islam.
So you believe in Prophet Muhammad, you believe in his book, you believe in Quran.
I don't believe in Quran. Again, that's the wrong way of putting it. These are not things to believe in. They are signposts to the thing to believe in. Scripture as sacred history is the attempt by
the way, this guy has multiple degrees in religion, so he's sort of an expert on all the religions. You believe in the Quran, you believe in the Prophet Muhammad. Of course you do. It's one of the pillars of Islam. So what's he talking about?
Individuals who have confronted an extraordinary experience and who have, using the limited means at their disposal, attempted to record that extraordinary experience, often in poetic and symbolic language, deep, meaningful, mystical language, so that they can preserve it for generations to understand
So you're also a man of
felt.
faith. So you're also a man of faith.
That doesn't make sense because most of the religious books are not actually written by the people who founded the religion. So, for example, Bible is not written by Jesus, or some of the books are not written by the prophets, but are written by people who follow them. So that creates a problem. Whereas the Quran has been compiled during the lifetime of the Prophet Muhammad. He actually ordained the chapters and the ordering and everything like that. So we know it from the source because he is the prophet. Even the Vedic text of Hinduism, there's no authorship.
Okay. So to you, the risk you're taking is, I'm risking believing the Quran, not the Bible. That's your risk, right? I mean,
That's a good question. Yeah, I'm betting my life on the Quran, not on the Bible. Thanks. Next question. Why? Here's why. So that would be kind of the logical step, but he just doesn't want to go there. I don't know why.
faith is believing in something you have not yet seen. There's a lot of criticism on the book of Quran. There's a lot of criticism on the Muslim religion, a lot of criticism on the religion you represent. Your risk is, I think afterlife is, my bet is I'm going to take the route of
No.
being a Muslim versus my route is.
I see where you're coming. Yeah, I'm sorry. When you study the religions of the world, it becomes impossible to take any one of these religions all that seriously.
Man, police. Police is after me. What's he saying there? You shouldn't take Islam seriously?
And there's two reasons for it. One, because you instantly recognize the religious patterns, the sort of phenomena that they all have in common with each other, that they're all saying basically the same thing. And more important,
Are all religions saying the same thing? Well, Buddhism says you need to transcend your own suffering by meditating and all that. It's a nice way of life. Hinduism says, no, there's reincarnation, samsara. Christianity says, no, Jesus died for your sins. You have to accept him and then you'll be saved. And Islam says, no, there's only one God worthy of worship and Muhammad is his prophet and follow him and you'll achieve success. These four things, or there's many other religions which we missed, paganism and all that, but these four, is there a similarity? Well, yeah, they're all kind of talking about the unseen, the transcendental, the spiritual things, true, but the way they go about it and the end goal of these religions is not the same. They do say there's something after death, but what is it? That's the different message then. That's a completely different message. From a point of view of a Muslim, it makes sense because Islam is culmination of all these religions because we believe everyone got the message. Every religion is based on some sort of level of truth, but it got corrupted over time. And there has been revelations to all the nations. And the last one is Islam. Because Islam is a final revelation with the final book, the final prophet. But if you're looking at it from a purely secular perspective as he does, then of course you're going to say, hey, all of it is the same thing. It all talks about the same thing. That's an atheist perspective usually, or like an agnostic. So very concerning to hear something like this from a Muslim because we know, no, Islam is not the same as Christianity or as Hinduism. And in Islam, there's only one path. You cannot enter paradise without Islam. Only if you haven't been exposed to it, only if you have some preconditions like you have mentally challenged or whatever, right? There are many exceptions, but general rule, no, Islam is the truth.
Importantly, they're saying it kind of in the same way, right? A lot of the same myths are just kind of repurposed. The myth of Jesus' resurrection is just the myth of Mithra's resurrection, right? The Sroushant in Zoroastrianism is a salvific character whose mother magically gets impregnated and gives birth to a messianic figure who brings in the end of the world. That's 1,000 years before Jesus, right? I mean, these are just the same stories over and over and over again. However, they are interlinked.
So right there, he's saying that the birth of Jesus, a virgin birth, is a myth and it didn't happen. Let's see where he goes with this, because we believe the same thing as Christians about this.
In the sense that they are trying to express something that, as a person of faith, I believe is real. And that is that there is something beyond the material realm. There is...
Okay, but that's a very vague idea. What is this thing beyond the realm of material things? That's the thing we should be focused on. Everybody knows there's something beyond, except if you're like a hardcore materialist.
Is a real, transcendent reality beyond the physical world that
faith,
we are locked in.
but it's faith.
It's faith, right.
It's a risk.
It's absolutely a risk.
Okay, so
It's faith, but no, the transcendental reality is real, and we can prove it. You have a consciousness, you have dreams, you have things which are unexplainable in this world. You are born and you die. How did you come to life? How did the universe begin to exist? All of these things point that there's a transcendental thing. People take mushrooms, people take some psychedelics. They see things which are not part of this reality, but they do see kind of things which are real in a sense, but not just in their head, but actually in this world, in a different dimension. There are particles disappearing on the quantum level. So there are things which are beyond material. Like, we can prove it 100%. It's not just faith, Patrick. If this is real, then the faith is to be an atheist. You're believing this is just material world. But there's an actual proof and evidence. No, it isn't. There's no just material world. Your own emotions are not material. Love is not material. But you still believe in it, and we don't have to prove it at all. This world existing, this world, just this world, that it exists, you can't prove it on materialism. That this world exists and you're not in some dream or something. But we still accept it because you can't... There are some things which you accept a priori. You're born with this. That's the same with the concept of God. You're born with that. You're born with the belief in God.
Okay, so the risk, so there's a part of me that's sitting here listening to you for the first hour. You sound more atheist than you sound Muslim, okay? You sound more atheist. You definitely don't sound Christian, obviously. You're given the arguments of atheists. It's like I'm listening to Chris Hitchens debate his brother, or I'm listening to an atheist give their argument. That's the part. So that kind of comes back to saying, well, why do you choose to be a Muslim? Why do you choose to follow the Quran? If you're such a scholar and you're educated and you got these 4 degrees, shouldn't an educated man like yourself, who's dealing a lot on facts, not risk believing any religion and rather just be an atheist?
You are.
But you're assuming that smart, intelligent people have to accept atheism because they are just working with facts. But actually, we just discussed that the facts of this world that there is this spiritual thing inside all of us. There's no contradiction between being a Muslim or a Christian and also being very smart. Those facts that you understand as an atheist, you haven't researched them, you just heard them and you trust the authorities. So if you have that sort of faith-based system where you trust the authorities, sometimes we know the authorities lie or the facts are not real, or even the scientific facts are not facts at all. We can look at the gravity laws and everything, how it changed over time. So we know science evolves, so we can apply the same logic to religion or anything like that. Well, we have testimonials that, let's say, we know what the Prophet Muhammad did. It's the same way you analyze anything else, and you scrutinize it, and then you come up with, yeah, this is actually true. That's the hadith sciences right there. Break it down, boy. But that's the same way. Like, you can just scrutinize like the Bible and say, hey, how do we know this is true? And then you find out, oh, there's multiple books, multiple authors. Okay, I don't believe in this. It's the same thing. A religious person just understands there's the spiritual thing. An atheist covers it up. He's a kafir. He covers it up and says, no, there's no spiritual thing, even though there's overwhelming evidence that there is.
So you just said that when you look at any of the world religions, that there's flaws, and there's issues, and there's lunacies, and then there's repeated myths. So how did you choose one rather than just being a scholar of the faith?
That's a good question. That is a good question. I like the question because, yeah, like, you're claiming that all this is about Christianity, about Hinduism. Okay, well, tell us why Islam is true.
Yeah.
Say, hey, I'm the scholar of the fake. Here's all my books. I'm going to delve into certain characters, Baskerville and others like this. But you know what? No. I'm going to stop and I'm going to choose one. How do you get there?
So, yeah, this is a great question. First of all, let's try to rid our minds of these categories like atheist, Muslim. Well, if you're clearly not a Christian because you question certain aspects of the Bible, bullshit. There are hundreds of millions of Christians who would agree with everything that I just said and priests.
Did you see what he did? Bait and switch. He didn't answer, and he started to talk about another topic to get rid of this mindset before he answers. I don't know if he does, so let's see.
Priests who taught me these things, right? They're not just Christians. They've given their life. There is no such thing as Christianity. Let's start there.
What's he saying?
Okay. There is no such thing as Christianity. Let's start there. There is no such thing as Islam. There is no such thing as Judaism. There is no such thing as Buddhism. There is only Christianities, Buddhisms, Islams. Christianity is whatever.
But Islam is whatever Muslims say it is? No. It's whatever the Prophet Muhammad said it is. And we know what he said. We have his authentic hadiths. Yeah, there are different understandings of Islam. And of course, different sects, which is a crazy thing. But to understand the basic, the Quran and Sunnah Islam, the authentic Islam, it's possible.
It is. Buddhism is whatever a Buddhist says it is. There is no mechanism for me to say, you call yourself a Buddhist, okay, but you don't believe this part.
But you have different levels of belief. So like, you have a belief in the Quran, you have the belief in the Day of Judgment and all that, and then you have some Sunnah things, then you have some things which are obligatory, like wearing the hijab. But for example, if you don't wear a hijab as a woman, that doesn't make you a disbeliever, it's just a sin. So it's not like you're not a Muslim, you are still a Muslim. I have sins, but I know the roadmap, I have a GPS, I know where I should go to fix it. There's levels of these things. And there's the core beliefs in Islam, and you have in Christianity. And if a Christian says he doesn't believe in Jesus, he's out of Christianity. He can still call himself a Christian culturally, but he's out. Each religion has its own boundaries. Sometimes it's very loose, sometimes it's stricter, like Islam. Do you understand this? Am I getting through to you? Or are you stupid?
Of the person is what you're saying.
You're not really a Buddhist. So let's start there. That's the important thing. The second thing that I think is really important to understand is that religion, all religions, are far less a matter of beliefs and practices than they are a matter of identity. And that's true of every religion in the world and every part of the world. 70% of Americans call themselves Christian. Bullshit. Bullshit. 70% of Americans follow the teachings of Christ. 70% of Americans go to church on, Sundays. 70% of Americans read the Bible on a consistent basis. The vast majority of that 70%, when they say I am Christian, they are not making a faith statement. They're making an identity statement. And that is true of a Buddhist.
He has a point. Most Muslims, not most, I would say most Muslims believe in Islam, but there are Muslims who say they are Muslim, but they don't do anything with it. So they are not a Muslim, actually. They are out of Islam, but they just identify culturally with Islam. Part of your identity is a religion. And where you are born, it matters. I'm born in Slovakia. It's a Catholic country. I'm a Catholic. There is a truth out there. And I did my research. And after years of research, I came to the conclusion that Islam is the truth. And I converted to Islam. as an atheist in that time. You are born into a Hindu family, you're gonna be a Hindu. You're born into Muslim, you're gonna be a Muslim. You're born into Christian, you're gonna be a Christian. You're born into an atheist family, you're gonna be an atheist. However, once you grow up out of that family, you yourself are accountable for your own life, and you have to decide: do I believe this, or do I believe that, or do I believe this? After you reach puberty and you can make your own decisions, you have to start digging. There's Google, there's research, there are questions in your heart you have, and if you ignore them, you're gonna be destroyed. If you don't, and you pursue the knowledge and you pursue the research, you're gonna end up finding the truth, and the truth is Islam. You can do comparative religion studies, anything like that, but this is the most important question in your life. What's the purpose of life? Why am I here? What happens after I die? It doesn't matter what your identity is. Now I'm building a new one. I'm a Slovak Muslim. That's a weird identity for people to grasp. Like, what? Slovak Muslim? That doesn't make any sense.
Of Buddhists and Jews and Muslims, what we people on the outside tend to do is think that religion is just about the things that you believe. And if you don't believe what the mainstream believes, then you're not really that thing anymore.
I don't disagree with that. I'm with you there on the identity part when you say 70%.
Actually, fully agree with that.
To the question.
Wait a minute. There's some fundamentals here, right? And if a person says I'm a Muslim, or a person says I'm a Christian, you dive into it a little bit, and you're more often than not, you're going to find some worldview creep in where they've made their own designation. When you take a look at the 70% of people in America that say they're a Christian, there's only about 15% of those that have what you would call a biblical worldview. And these are not the Amish in the middle of Pennsylvania adopting nothing of modern technology. These are people that have an authentic biblical worldview. And at the same thing, there's people that say, well, I'm Jewish. Well, now, wait a minute. Are you a Zionist as a political state Jew, or are you authentic? So I think identity is like, you're correct about it, but we need to kind of wash that a little bit, because I can say I'm a Southerner. Oh, sorry. Listen, I'm sorry. I'm a Bostonian. What is a Bostonian? I'm sorry. I'm a New Englander. We have all these labels. Do you know what? We just kind of take it as it is. I'm a Midwesterner. Right? You have all labels that happen all over the place, and you can't take a broad brush and just sweep everything out, Reza, because you're correct about the 70%. You are correct about the 70%. But within that, there are people that do have a biblical worldview, whether they be Jews, whether they be Muslims, whether they be Christians. Are
they the real Christians because they have the biblical worldview, and no, the other 45% aren't?
I think... Well, you know what? A cleric would tell you that it is my job, and I'll speak to your faith, that it is my job to ensure that I teach and I help people to calibrate what is the authenticity of their Muslim faith, right, and the principles and tenets of Islam.
And who gave him that job? And who gave him that job? He went to school and he learned a bunch of things, and now
he also has the script.
But he's a scholar. He has a context of things. Like, I have the Quran, but I don't have the context. I don't have the tafsir, the explanations. I haven't studied the Arabic. Like, the scholars have done this, so they can provide better answers than yourself. They have hadiths, which they have categorized. So what you're talking about? You can't interpret yourself the religion. You have to follow the interpretation, which already exists usually, because then you're creating your own kind of thing. You're following your own desires.
Sure that they have, and he can either choose.
I have that same scripture.
That's exactly right. You can be north of London, and you can be a radicalized cleric. That
what I don't want to
the tube.
What I don't want to do is the following. Here's what I don't want to do. And by the way, there's angles I can take with Virgin Mary and the Quran, and what the Quran says about Virgin Mary, and what many Muslims think about Virgin Mary, and we can go that angle. But the part I was going to go with you on the Virgin Mary side, that even in the Quran they talk about, is the chances of somebody being born, because a lot of people made that claim back in the days because it's embarrassing. Oh my God, you're having sex prior to this, prior to getting married, and then for the chances of that son ending up being Jesus, that's a 1 in a trillion type of a number. That's just a very random math. I'm a math guy. Very random mathematical number to come up with that. So the faith part with that is, it's tough to kind of fight against that part. But let me come back, because
he still didn't say why he's a Muslim. Imagine this, embarrassing.
Because the question was still not answered.
Yeah.
Let me come back to the question. So if your arguments, I'm listening to you, very critical of the Christian church in a very non-critical way. The way you're doing it is a way a scholar would do it, where the average person listens to that and they say, oh my God, what do I say to this part here? But I'll flip it and I'll say, dude, you sound like an atheist. And I can respect that. If you're an atheist, you're an atheist. If you're going to say, look, my risk I'm taking in life, I'm taking a risk that Quran's the book. I'm not taking a risk that I'm going to be a Christian. I'm taking a risk that I'm going to be a Muslim. No problem. Let's get past this part. I'm going to go to the next part on question. If you want to answer the atheist.
Prelude to it, but to just get to it, I am not an atheist because I think atheism is an intellectually vacuous position. I think it's unsophisticated. I don't think it's smart. An atheist, a true atheist, right? Someone who is truly an atheist is a materialist. A materialist believes that literally nothing exists, that nothing can exist beyond my empirical experience of that thing. That to me is the height of hubris and absurdity, right? The idea that all that exists is the material realm and nothing beyond it is just, I would say, even scientifically absurd. Now, what is that other thing? Who knows? Okay, let's just give it a word, because that's all the word God is. It's just a word. It's not a thing. It's a word, and like all words, it has 1,000.
That's true. The word God is that, but the word Allah. That's why Allah is called Allah in Islam and not God, because you can have a God of war, a God of this. You can have 2 gods, 3 gods. You can have a... What do you mean by God? It can be anything. But Allah, you can't have 2 Allahs, or you can't say, hey, this guy is Allah. No, we all know what Allah means. It's one God, Allah.
And connotations. It represents a bunch of things. But in its simplest
Allah, one God.
form, let's just say what we mean when we say God is that which is
beyond the material realm. Okay, cool. However, one God, we know the attributes of Allah. So here he can educate them. Allah is uncreated. Allah doesn't begin nor does he end. You can imagine Allah. He's beyond creation. All of these things he could say, but he just says a wishy-washy term which is used by kind of spiritual people. Weird.
beyond, that which is beyond the material realm, the thing. The question then becomes, can I access that thing? Do I have the ability to commune with?
It's a good question. Once you establish that there must be this force out there, and it's probably this thing, which he probably did, how do you reach it? Did this thing communicate with us? And that's the question of revelation and prophets. It did. It did communicate with us because it's all knowing. He forgot that attribute, but it is. So the way to access it, I want to know how.
To communicate with it, to experience it in some way. And that's a personal thing. I've accessed it. I've communicated with it. I've experienced it. People who do yoga, people who climb mountains, people who surf, and yes, people who are Christians or Jews or Muslims or Buddhists or whatever can tell you a very similar story.
That's not it. When you surf or when you climb a mountain, there's euphoric, there's nothing there. You still don't know what happens after your death. You still don't know what's the purpose of life. You still don't know, why am I here? You haven't answered anything. It's an experience. Let's call it a spiritual experience. Okay, I give you that. There's nothing, it's still empty. It's just an experience. We're talking about religion, which gives you guidance how to live your life, not some experience only.
Yeah, I'm not going to prove this intellectually. All I can tell you is that there is something beyond, and I have touched it. I have felt it. So then the next question is, do I want to...
All right, that's cool. But we can prove the preservation of the Quran, the Hadiths. Why are you saying you can't prove it? We can use the same method you use for science, for the same thing. But since we're describing transcendental, science is not enough here. You will have to have these experiences. You will have to understand something about deduction. You will have to understand something about, kind of going deep into yourself and reflecting on your own creation. These things you have to kind of boil down. There's rational arguments and all that combined together with the experience, create iman, create faith in Islam.
Touched it. I have felt it. So then the next question is, do I want to know it? Was it enough that I climbed that mountain and was like, wow, and then I went back home? Or do I want to know it now?
Do I want to know it? Yes, that's a good question. Once you understand there's Allah, once you understand that, okay, probably there's some messaging, how do I access it? Everyone should kind of want to know it, because it should give, you should have this feeling inside of you of, hey, I need to know what my life is about. I need to know the purpose of life. I couldn't wake up, I couldn't function anymore without understanding this. So this is a good breakdown of Iman. Like, it's up to you to decide if you want to live your life according to the teachings of Islam or not.
Well, if you want to know it, it so happens that there are thousands of years worth of systems.
Good point again. That's what I did as well. Like, once you understand, okay, God is real, some force exists, I'm going to look at all the religions. And I did. And I kind of look at the basics and I decide, okay, Judaism not, Hinduism not, Buddhism not, Shintoism not, Taoism not. There's only two left, Christianity, Islam, that are kind of like possibly claiming to be truth. Go deeper into that. You find out the problems with the Bible, the problems with Trinity and all that. And you find out Tawhid, oneness of God in Islam. What's the issue? The preservation of the Quran, the Hadiths. I'm not talking about the rules. I'm talking about the basis of the faith.
Languages. That's what really religion is all about. It's just languages. Languages are made up of symbols and metaphors that help you experience, communicate that experience, make sense of that experience. And you can pick any language you want. It is irrelevant what language you choose.
No scholar, no Muslim would ever say this, that you can pick any religion and you're going to be fine. It's not possible. Maybe as a Christian, maybe as a secular understanding whatever person, yes, but once you understand deeply the message of Islam, there's no other way. It's written in the Quran. This is like the idea of kind of all religions are the same, you can go with whatever, you'll reach the same conclusion. It sounds good if you don't have knowledge, if you don't have enough knowledge of religion, any religion. But each religion tells you, no, we're the right way. Christianity doesn't say you can be a Muslim. Christianity doesn't say you can be a Jew. Judaism doesn't say you can be a Christian. Judaism doesn't say you can be a Muslim. No, you clearly have the path here. So each religion tells us this is the right way. If you believe in a religion, it says this. It can be everything.
Just different symbols. It's like saying, what's better, French or German? What are you talking about? They're both expressing the exact...
That's crazy. That's crazy that he's saying that. That's insane, to be honest. We're talking about life after death. We're talking about specifically what's going to happen. And he's saying, oh, it's okay. It's pick whatever, like reincarnation. What's he talking about? Reincarnation, heaven, hell, nothing. It doesn't matter. It doesn't? Really? Oh, okay.
They're both expressing the exact same thing. Just pick one. The Buddha very famously said, if you want to strike water, you don't dig 6 1-foot wells. You dig 1 6-foot well. Islam is my 6-foot well. But the important... That's hidden in the Buddha...
He said Islam is my well, but he didn't explain why. He didn't explain why. Subhanallah.
In the Buddha's words there is that the well is irrelevant.
Woo! Well is irrelevant. All right.
The well is nothing more than the means to get to the water. And guess what?
And guess what? The water is defined differently in each of these religions, and the path is different in each of these religions.
The water that you're drinking from is the water that every well is drinking from. So pick a well. Pick a well that works for you. In my case, for a whole host of reasons, my culture, my background, my identity, my comfort, Islam is my 6-foot well.
Basically, he's a Muslim because of his culture, his background, and his identity. Those are not the reasons to be a Muslim. You're a Muslim because you believe in Allah. There's only one God. You're a Muslim because the Quran is a preserved word from Allah, and I believe it's divine revelation. That it's impossible that Muhammad could have come up with all these scientific evidences, with all these predictions. I believe in the Hadiths. That's why I'm a Muslim, not because of my identity. My identity is not a Muslim. My culture is not a Muslim. I don't have any background in Islam. I've never heard of it. I never looked it up before.
And particularly Sufi Islam is my 6-foot well. It's the language that I use
All right, Sufi Islam, cool. But that doesn't mean you can be something else, bro.
to make sense of a thing that is inexpressible. It's a language I use to talk about a thing that's impossible to talk about.
No, it's possible. You know Allah through the Quran because he told you about himself, because the Quran is a direct revelation of Allah through angel Gabriel. Are you insane, Reza? Every Muslim knows this. And he told you his attributes, 99 names. So what you're saying, it's inexpressible. Yes, you can imagine Allah and all that, but there are things you know about him.
And it's a language that other people understand, so I can communicate with them. They get it. We can talk about that experience. But to say that I believe in the well is stupid.
All right, so he doesn't believe in Islam. He doesn't believe in Allah.
People who say, I believe in Christianity, I believe in Islam, I believe in the Quran, I believe in the Torah, are doing it wrong.
Really? Damn. Son?
Those are not things to believe in. They're your well. They're the thing that points you to the thing to believe in.
Whoa.
And so, as someone who wants a deep and meaningful spiritual life, who has experienced transcendence and wants to experience it more and understand it more, I've chosen this particular well.
Which is your risk. We've taken risk. Everybody's taking
The Bible, whether it's the Torah, whether it's the Quran. Should these books, these relics, be taken literally or metaphorically?
Let's see.
Not only should they be taken metaphorically, they were never, ever, ever intended to be read literally. Do you think?
So if Allah says, don't drink alcohol, that's not a literal statement. That's just, there's a metaphor there. Or if Allah says, pray 5 times a day, that's not a literal statement. That's just metaphor. He's always using Christianity for his examples of why is it a metaphor? Why is he not using the Quran? Why is he not using the Quran? I think he knows he would be in big trouble, but he's already in big trouble. All right, guys, so this was my reaction to Reza. There's a lot to unpack here. He even said in one of these clips that he's raising his kids. He traveled around the world, and his kids, one of them is a Jew, one of them is interested in Hinduism, and he supports that idea. So he's not raising them as Muslims. I mean, this guy is a joke. How can he say he's a Muslim and make such a basic mistakes? And he's even like religious scholar. So assalamu alaikum. See you in the next video.